nightmare.
Hello and welcome to Cinema Subculture, where we discuss everything strange, obscure and downright messed up in the world of movies. My name's Gary.
And I'm Simon. Gary, just before we start, I just wanted to take a wee chance to reach out and thank the subscribers on YouTube. We've just recently hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're still gathering more. So, yeah, again, we've mentioned before, but the fact that we're an audio-only podcast on a video platform, it's pretty amazing that we've reached that kind of a first little goal for ourselves. So, yeah, continue to like and subscribe and share it. And if you randomly come across this podcast, please do remember to give us a subscribe and ring the little notification bell, and you'll get a notification of when new episodes go up. But yeah, from Gary and me, thank you for the support of the channel.
Thank you.
So Gary, why are we here today to talk?
Today we're going to talk about Blue Velvet, released in 1986. It's a mystery thriller directed by David Lynch. After discovering a severed ear near his house, Jeffrey, played by Kyle MacLachlan, gets drawn into an underworld of seedy criminality populated by the troubled nightclub singer Dorothy Valens and the psychotic Frank Booth, played by Dennis Hopper.
So I've only seen this film probably twice now. For me, the first time I watched it, I was kind of blown away with it. I really did get that fix of kind of Twin Peaksy, kind of that kind of ethereal kind of feel that the Twin Peaks kind of evokes when you're watching it. It's got that kind of noir feel to it. It's quite a heart of innocence when it first starts, and that kind of grabbed me again this time, how innocent the story feels and the characters feel at the beginning of this film. Compared to where the actual the content goes. I don't know if I was a little less impressed with it this time. I don't know if something was different this time. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I felt as I was watching it until the kind of crazy shit starts going. Maybe I wasn't bored, but maybe I was just waiting on those scenes. I don't know. I can't quite describe what I was feeling. And maybe it is because, I'm a big fan of Kyle MacLachlan as Dale Cooper, and he's not quite got that same quirkiness here. I always imagine him as a proto Dale Cooper. That Jeffrey in this could almost be like a precursor to who Dale, who he grows up to be Dale Cooper. You could almost imagine that a little bit with some of the character traits, but he's just not quite got that kind of, cherry pie coffee loving grin on his face, if you know what I mean, for most of it. I haven't seen any of Lynch's earlier films. I've not seen I've not seen Eraserhead, Elephant Man, or Dune, whatever it is. Frank Herbert's Dune. I've not seen any of those. So is it fair to say this is kind of like the start of Lynch feeling like Lynch, if that makes sense? I know Eraserhead was kind of like that, but I mean, again, not having seen them, Elephant Man seems like it's more of a kind of factual retelling almost, or dramatization of like a true story. And Dune's obviously an adaptation, which I think had quite a lot of studio kind of interference or kind of meddling, whereas this feels like the first time he's kind of a little bit let loose into that kind of Lynchian world that we get in a lot of his later films and in Twin Peaks and such.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I think Blue Velvet, although maybe it's towards sort of mainstream side of his output, it's one where things sort of come together and you start to see a lot of the kind of Lynchian tropes that we're familiar with. He really kind of finds his groove on this one. Razorhead was maybe too strange, too much to the sort of strange extreme. Elephant Man ultimately is quite a conventional film. Dune, I don't really consider too much of a Lynchian film, and there's not a lot of what you think of as Lynch in there. I think Blue Velvet is quite an intimidating film to talk about, on the one hand because it's just so great, but it's also a film that's very kind of rich in analytical substance, for want of a better way to put it. Like, it's one that's film theorists love for its, you could go deep on the psychoanalytical analysis, the Freudian stuff is right in there. It's one that's quite a tome for the film analysis. So I feel like it's one of those films that it's hard to maybe find an original take on. So I couldn't quite find an angle for a kind of way to kind of lead the conversation. But I mean, I'll just kind of say why I think the film is so great, because watching it again after not having seen it for quite a number of years, it kind of blew me away just how absolutely great it was. I would say it's like a stone cold masterpiece, 5 out of 5 movie. And what struck me watching it again was, for a director like Lynch, who's not known as a narrative director, how masterfully he controls a story and leads the audience through a maze of mystery, fluctuating these two extremes of extreme goodness, almost caricatured soap opera, 50s mythological America, to the real extreme darkness that he explores in this movie. And it's done expertly, and it's still a film that has real power to disturb and to shock. It was still shocking, a lot of the scenes in it, and I think that's down to Lynch's control of the narrative. And it does make you think of Hitchcock in a similar way. Obviously the story has sort of similarities to Psycho, the voyeurism, the sort of innocent character being led into a kind of underworld of horrible things. And in some ways, on a formal level, it is quite a conventional mystery crime film, but imbued with Lynch's trademark strangeness, which make the film unique and just rather strange and captivating, and just makes it remain a work that has such great power.
It's interesting. Picking up on a few things you said there. So I've got someone that I work with. I was talking a while ago about Blue Velvet, and saying how much I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic film, and he was like, "Oh, that's the David Lynch film," yeah, and he's like, "Oh, nah, I couldn't watch that," and I was, "What do you mean?" Like, I couldn't, what? And he says, "I don't know." He says, "It just really made me feel strange, like, and uncomfortable and disturbed watching it," and it really kind of blew me back at the time, because I was like, really, like, I couldn't. I mean, I know there's definitely shocking stuff in there, but just the way he was describing it was, you would think it was something like, a Serbian film or a Human Centipede or something like that, whereby, like, he says that and he kind of refuses to watch, like, Lynch stuff at all, like, like, even I think he'd quite like Twin Peaks, but apparently he's watched the pilot of that and he didn't quite, he didn't like that either. Right. But yeah, Blue Velvet, that's like his kind of like curse word when it comes to films. Almost like he can't get through it, and it just makes him feel so uncomfortable. So it's interesting you say that about how shocking it is, and it is true. I think even the first time and this time I've watched the film, I can't quite see I can't quite see past the amazing performances of these quite well-known actors to get to the shocking nature. It's just, you know what I mean? It's kind of almost like I'm just kind of lost in the scene a little bit. I don't know. I don't necessarily get shocked by it. It's just like kind of like, what the hell is happening? It's kind of like in Mulholland Drive, when we suddenly literally switch from through the looking glass into this different kind of reality. That's almost like when Frank enters that apartment and gets her to turn the light off. It's almost like that, we are seeing that play out, rather than using any kind of device which, reality altering or playing with the audiences what they know already. It's literally, we're seeing that kind of like change, in the film almost, going from this kind of, as I say, quite innocent mystery, murder mystery or crime mystery to this kind of, I don't know, like perverted, twisted kind of dreamscape almost. Yeah, it's really is. It's really intriguing, when you see what came after that. It's just it's doing the same thing really, but just in a different kind of more, what do you say, more kind of straightforward way almost. He's literally just changing the tone of the film in the middle of a scene. It's quite
Yeah,
interesting.
it's not. It's a film that's a bit more straightforward than what he moved on to later. Although a lot of the similar themes continued, but it's interesting what you were saying about the shock, because you're right to say that the content of the film maybe doesn't pales in comparison to some of the more extreme stuff we've talked about. But I think that the power of the filmmaking really makes it hit home, and sort of looking over the sort of critical response to the film, it's interesting that response you were talking about with your friend, like that was quite common, because I was looking back and Mark Kermode said he walked out the film the first time he saw it, he hated it. Roger Ebert really disliked the film, mostly because of its sort of treatment of Isabella Rossellini, who he said was sort of mistreated for the sake of narrative. I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I think that is the power of the filmmaking. And what's maybe quite shocking is, the fact that some of the more disturbing sexual scenes, the S&M, sadomasochist stuff, the way Lynch kind of manoeuvres the audience to, dislike some of the characters and have this kind of grey, moving sense of character morality, where you're kind of following the Jeffrey character, thinking he's like just a kind of pure Boy Scout, but then we start to pick away at that, and he's actually got a bit of a dark side to him as well. And then when we actually see him, hit Isabella Rossellini when they're having sex, it sort of jars the audience back to think, right, as a shock to the audience, can you get this situation where the audience is sort of unseated? And that kind of ties into, I think, the film noir influence that Lynch is working on. One of the kind of cores of film noir was this kind of shifting morality, breaking down these kind of simple binaries of right and wrong, good and bad, and sort of everyone's kind of corrupted in film noir. And I think that's one of the kind of threads that Lynch is trying to pull at. These two kind of distinct, light and dark, can coexist at the same time, and I think the film does a really great job of that. But it is kind of not necessarily an easy watch. I think one of the kind of difficult things in talking about a Lynch film as well is that on the one hand they seem really rich and pre-ready made to analyse, but at the same time his films have a kind of ambiguity that it's hard to pin down exactly what means what, and I think Lynch does that in sort of intentionally, although it's hard to say if he knows what it means or he's just a more kind of instinctive kind of director. Because I've seen there was an interview I watched with him and Mark Kermode was interviewing him, and Mark tried to point out one of the kind of visual tropes in the film and say, yes, this means this, doesn't it? And then Lynch just kind of laughed it off and in a kind of patronising way said, oh Mark, and laughed at him. So I think it's hard to pin anything down within a Lynch film and sort of give it a direct meaning, which ultimately gives his films a kind of timelessness. So it's hard to say, what if it means anything, if it means just something kind of, it's a feeling. He always kind of talks about, he had an idea. I think he said even about this film, like it started, he just said a kind of feeling of a mood, about a film.
Mm-hmm.
So he seems to kind of work on that level. And there was even sort of things that were in the deleted scenes which might have had a more, given it a more tangible political backstory. There's a scene where the reason is explained that Jeffrey has to come home is because they don't have enough money to pay for his father's healthcare, so Jeffrey can't stay in university. So, but I think it's interesting that Lynch stripped that stuff out to make it more, on a sort of higher plane of ambiguity and just kind of floating, not explicitly about anything, but also not being able to be pinned down in a kind of, in a way that's ultimately quite boring, to say that it's just about this specific thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because I'm sitting here and I'm actually standing, but I'm standing here and I'm thinking what you're saying there, and I was going to mention it a few times, but like, so we first see Jeffrey's walking through a field, and he's wearing quite, to me, which is quite an unusual suit, right? Which is like a kind of, I can't see if it's like a satin suit or something, but it really makes me start to wonder where we don't know anything about where he's been, really, or what he's been doing, right, or what kind of person he was before this film starts. And I kind of like that, and I don't know what it means. I don't know, why it intrigues me, and I'm all right not knowing, but certainly he had to come home because they couldn't pay the medical bills is a far more mundane and kind of, that explains it, but it doesn't make it any more interesting for me. And it kind of, I'm quite happy to have that kind of picture in my head of like, what kind of suit is that he's got on? Where has he been? Is he quite because it comes across as that he could potentially have been quite a dark character before we see him, or he might have been, I don't know. I just have this kind of idea that I haven't even really thought about, but it's somewhere in the back of my brain about this character, and I think that's across the board, really. We don't know Frank's story, we don't know Ben's story, we don't know, we the only people we really have a decent grasp on is the police officer and Sandy, his daughter Sandy, that we know kind of who they are and what their kind of pre the film story is, but even then, those are quite generic archetypes in film. But for Jeffrey, like, I don't know, I guess that just lends to we just don't know whether this is a good guy or not, But yeah, I need to watch it again. But I still am falling back to my first initial impression that I loved it. As I say, I'm gonna throw this latest watch, just as I say, it probably 80% loved it, 10% was a wee bit annoyed at some of the characters, and 10% was waiting for the
the
good stuff to happen. But yeah, it's an interesting chat. It is. I think you talk so long about it and come up with different ideas, and as you say, I'm sure it's all been said before, but it's quite interesting to kind of get your take on it, and it's always fun to talk about Lynch. What's your thoughts on the Isabella Rossellini character? For me, I felt a little bit, just watching it this time, I don't know, I felt I wasn't as, I guess maybe because I knew what the mystery was, and it wasn't necessarily quite as intriguing as it was the first time. I found myself waiting for either. I quite enjoyed the Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern moments. I think because for their innocence and that kind of like Twin Peaksy kind of feel that I was getting from that stuff, and then I was waiting for Frank to come in to be in the scenes with either Rossellini or Rossellini and MacLachlan. But I don't know. I found the stuff with her and Kyle MacLachlan a little bit kind of. I don't know. I felt like I was just getting through it a little bit. That way. I don't. Yeah. Up until the scene you're talking about with where she wants him to hit her, they're having sex. That's it's just the way that's shot, I think, and the way that it kind of goes into that kind of like slow motion, low shutter speed kind of photography. I really enjoyed, but I don't know, I guess maybe I was just waiting for, because I knew it was coming, this time. Whereas I say the first time obviously I watched it, I was very much like, just what's the mystery here? Where are we going? So I don't know. I probably to try and watch it again and just kind of like try and just let myself go with it a bit. But I think I was just because I know what the big performances that are coming. I guess I was just anticipating those coming in. So it's a kind of weird film to watch in a second. But I mean, how many times have you seen it?
Well, I watched it twice there. I couldn't say how many times I've seen it before. At least 3, maybe 5, 6.
I absolutely loved it the first time, and it's not I didn't enjoy it this time. I just felt as if I was waiting to get to the bits that I really stuck out to me the first time. If that makes sense. Which is unusual, but I suppose I don't know if I'm the same with some of other Lynch's other stuff. I think when it's almost like set pieces, in an action film, you get your weight, you know what's coming, so you're kind of like, right, come on, let's get to that. I guess I was just maybe excited to get to watch it again, and because it is a little bit slower at the beginning, I think that's maybe all it is. I said I need to watch it again to try and get a better handle on the pacing of it. But as I say, the first time I absolutely loved it, and everything you were saying about it, I feel the same.
Yeah, I think there might be some sort of validity to some of what Roger Ebert was saying, in the sense that you could make the argument that the Dorothy Valance character is kind of used as a bit of a prop just to kind of further the narrative and the sort of arcs of the other characters. She maybe doesn't get quite enough of a psychological backstory of her own, so you might say there's a bit of exploitation, particularly of Rosa Lee's body. It's just she's used to kind of, first of all, to get McLachlan into the narrative. Then when the scene where she turns up naked at Jeffrey's house, she's just there, and then she's kind of bundled off. They maybe don't get too much of the story from her point of view.
You know what I think? Maybe I feel like maybe her scenes. It's not this film's fault, because this maybe where a lot other media has kind of like sourced it from in the most kind of immediate past, but her scenes and the kind of stuff she does, including even the end, and when she's kind of essentially dobbing Jeffrey in for being her secret lover, those I think maybe feel the most tropey parts of the film. Like that way kind of you kind of see them come, not necessarily the end scene or where it goes, but maybe the characters, dialogue, I'm not crazy and stuff like that, just because hit me, and I don't know, there's something maybe just a little bit kind of that's now, in this day and age, has been a little bit overdone, and maybe that's where I was getting that from, and you kind of the end scene, it's like the whole kind of, all right, she's going to show up and suddenly that's gonna, although to be fair, it doesn't actually break Jeffrey and Sandy up, but that way it just felt a little bit kind of, well, this is that scene of a film, that way. I don't know. It was only really hers and McLachlan's and scenes, and then the rest of it, I didn't have it didn't stick out to me necessarily. Maybe it's just because I'm like, I want Jeffrey and Sandy to be together. Maybe that's what it is now. I'm just like, what's this woman doing here? Try to steal Jeffrey from Sandy, for God's sake. Sandy's pissed off her boyfriend now because of Jeffrey, and then you know what I mean. I don't know. It's maybe just that I can't. It's intangible, but like I need to maybe just check it out again and try and I just know her character just rubbed me a little bit the wrong way.
Mm.
It was just I don't know what it was, but yeah, that was, as I say, the only kind of things that didn't necessarily change in the first time, but stuck out to me compared to the first time I watched it.
Right, yeah. So Blue Velvet, can't find any flaws in the film. It's edge of the seat stuff, and it's got some kind of a genre DNA, but it's imbued with Lynch's unique vision of, as he says, it's a strange world, isn't it?
Yeah.
As Jeffrey says.
And only thing I would add to that is if you are watching it and you think, oh, this is a bit slow, just wait, because it's about to kick off. But I'm sure in your first viewing, if you're into Lynch at all and you can get over the unsettling nature of the tone of the film, you'll love it.
So thanks for listening to Cinema Subculture. If you like more of this content, please make sure you have subscribed on YouTube, like the video and hit the notification bell.
Thanks for listening. I've been Simon.
I've been Gary.
Baby wants to fuck.
Goodness me.